What's going on, drivers? Welcome to Trucking with Old Snapper. And you have here Old Snapper. Well, I was down in Houston and I rolled these tarps up in the mud. It was raining, it was nasty, and I was on a dirt lot. They ended up all jacked up, and I don't know about the rest of y'all, but it drives me nuts if my tarps are not right. Plus, they take up a lot more space on the deck when they're not folded up properly. So I took advantage today because the weather was good and there was nobody parked next to me to go ahead and stretch at least one of them out. The other two are still jacked up, and get it right, or get it better anyway. It's still covered in mud. It's still got dry mud all over it, both sides. So it is what it is, and that's what I got going on in this video. We run a 3-tarp system here, and right there, that's the middle tarp that I'm stretching out to refold up properly and put it back on the deck. But anyhow, that's not what I'm here to talk about. Now, if you don't know how to fold tarps, you can kind of watch, you can figure it out. It's pretty easy. I'm going to open it up, straighten it out. I'm going to get it as flat as possible. I take my time with it because I'm not in no hurry. And, and I make my folds, just bring it to the center on both sides and keep doing that. And then roll it up, put a bungee on it. Really ain't nothing to it, especially with them square tarps. There's no flap or anything on that one. I only got flaps on my end tarps. But let's talk about Wylie. And I'm just going to give you my perspective for the most part, but something I've done a little different. Now, I've done many reviews on different companies that I've worked at over the years, and this one here, though, I did a little bit different. I still don't really have a full understanding, so I'm not going to get too in detail, and I'm going to put that right up front. But I'm just going to give my experience so far over the last couple of months. I've been here almost 2 months, and I'm going to talk a little bit as well about what some of the other people in orientation that I stayed in contact with and talked to on the phone on a regular basis. I'm going to give you a little bit of their perspective as well. That's something I've done different. Because as you know, 5 drivers can go to the same company and you can get 5 totally different perspectives on that same company. I mean, everybody's experience or what everybody's going through is going to be a little bit different, right? So I'm going to give you mine, and then I'm going to give you a little bit of theirs as well. First, I'm going to tell you about orientation. Orientation, they rented me a car to come up to Fargo. I had the option between that or flying. I wanted to bring a little bit more of my stuff, so I took the car rental. They sent me my per diem for orientation, and that was my gas money to get there. So they paid for the gas, all of that, food, everything was covered. I didn't come out of pocket at all on my trip to Fargo. They took very good care of me on that aspect. And orientation, I'm going to give you a little quick rundown of orientation. They put us up in the La Quinta there in Fargo. Pretty nice hotel. It's got a really nice breakfast. Probably one of the best breakfasts I've ever had at any hotel I've ever been at. There are some restaurants around the area. There's a Dairy Queen. There's a couple little restaurants across the street, all within walking distance. Even in the cold, nothing's really that far. So I really enjoyed the stay in La Quinta, and I enjoyed my time there. Orientation was a little bit long. It's a little bit long compared to a lot of them that I've been to. Most orientations are 2-3 days. It was a full week, and it was a packed week. I mean, a fully packed week. And by the time you get out of orientation, you've been jammed with so much information that you don't remember half of it. But it's a really, really packed week. And if you're a smoker, you're probably not going to like orientation at all at this company if you're a smoker. We did get smoke breaks, but like I said, it was a pretty packed week. And they're sometimes pretty far in between. I think if orientation would have gone another week or two, I probably could have quit smoking, to be honest with you, because you were wanting a cigarette by the time you got a chance to smoke a cigarette. But anyhow, that's just for the smokers out there. It's interesting, and I did learn a lot in their orientation. Their securement class is pretty good. I'm an experienced flatbedder, but I still learned some things in their securement class that I hadn't encountered before. It was good information. They know the FMCSA laws on that stuff pretty well, and that was a good part of orientation. Now they have an agility test that you take on the first day. You have to they'll take your blood pressure, and then they'll give you the test. They do it right there at the location in Fargo, right there at the terminal. Now that test is something else. Now it ain't. If you take all of the things that are done in there, none of them are really that hard, but they rush you through it. By the time you get to the end, you're huffing and puffing. Boy, you feel like you've had a workout by the time you get to the end. I had to go find a place to sit down and catch my breath. We don't push ourselves out here on the road like that. there's a little bit of time in between them. But the agility test basically was a basic physical, touch your toes, walk on your heels, walk on your tippy toes, kind of check your balance out. Have you climb up and down a ladder a few times, get on the trailer, get off the trailer. Have you flip a tarp end on end 3 or 4 times across the floor. Have you pick a tarp up, put it on the trailer, and then take it off the trailer, take it back, set it back down. You do that a couple times. I don't remember exactly how many. But that's pretty much the agility test. Now, you do have to be able to touch your toes, and you do have to be able to get that tarp up onto a flatbed trailer, not a step deck, not a low pro, but a regular flatbed trailer. And they'll also have you set that tarp on the flatbed trailer and push it away from you and pull it to you 2 or 3 times. They kind of check that. They'll have you squat or kneel, either or, but you have to hold it for a minute. So it's a basic agility test. Some of the agility tests I've been through are a little bit more stringent than that one, but that one was still pretty tough on the cardio side of things. The logging system that we use here is Samsara, and it's different. The tablets, different. The way your messages come in is different. So I'm still getting used to it. Even a couple months into it, I'm still getting used to the way that works. And I plan on doing a video once I get it down and get it all completely understood. I plan on doing a video on that tablet to help anybody else that might be coming here, so they'll understand that tablet. Because that tablet, I've been driving 15 years. I've used Samsara before when I was in the oil field, but we used it on our phone, so we didn't have the tablet. That tablet's different. And the way Samsara works, in my opinion, from my experience, because I'm used to Qualcomm and PeopleNet, that Samsara is just, it's a little more, I don't know, I would say a little more complicated. To me, it seems like anyway, right? It might be different. If you're used to it, you may already know the system. But if you don't, it's a little different. All right, now I'm going to go through the things I like about EW Wylie. And then after that, I'm going to tell you the things I don't like about EW Wylie. And then after that, I'm going to tell you what I've gathered from the 2 other people from our orientation that I talk to on a pretty regular basis, and tell you a little bit of what their feelings are from their experience. That they're telling me anyway. That's third hand. Okay, so keep that in mind when I get to that part. That's third hand information. Now, the things I like about Wylie. One of the things I personally like about Wylie is they don't bother me a whole lot. The freight is decent. I get a few tarp loads, a few equipment loads that are non-tarped. It's a good mix. It's not constantly tarping. I know, like when I worked at Decker, it seemed like we tarped everything. I think Decker would have tarped the air behind the trailer if they could have figured out how to. I mean, Decker tarped everything. Here, it's not quite like that. I mean, I use my tarps. Probably sometimes, some weeks I use them more than I do other weeks. But I do get a good mix of freight, and I do like that. Decker does a day and a half for every 7 days out. I like that as well. Another thing Decker does is whenever you put in for home time, let's say you got 6 days coming, and you're going to take the 1st off through the 6th. You're actually going to put in your home time for the day before you want to be home till the day after. They don't count the day before and they don't count the day after. Because the day before, they're trying to get you there, and then they expect you back in the truck 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning on the day you said you were coming back. So those 2 days don't count. So you get that solid 6 days off. Those are 2 things that I really like about Decker. Not Decker, Wylie. The insurance here at Wylie is very affordable. I think they even have a 0 cost option, but I went with the one just above that, right in the middle. The insurance here is pretty decent. And as you know, I keep saying that. I got Decker on the brain. Wylie is a part of a bigger company. So the group policy is very affordable. I like the equipment. They're Peterbilts. I love the enclosed racks. I've ran open racks before. I don't like an open rack. I like an enclosed rack to store our equipment in. They give us plenty of equipment. I like that. I don't really care for the 3 tarp system, but hey, they got good tarps. They keep some new ones down there at the yard as well. They try to take care of making sure that the trucks have everything that's needed for you to do your job. And they keep pretty nice equipment. I like the APU, got a bunk heater. And as y'all know, if you've been following me for any amount of time, I hate OptiIdle. I just can't stand the OptiIdle. I like an APU. Not a lot of companies run them anymore, but hey, we got them here. And that's one of the things I really like about Wylie. The money has been pretty steady. I'd say $1,500 to $1,800 a week. The money's been steady, and that I do like as well. There's not a whole lot of ups and downs. They have a pretty nice terminal, and I like that too about Wylie as well. And most of the people that I have dealt with in the office have been pretty friendly. Now I'm going to get into the things that I don't like, okay? Because no company out there is perfect, right? So I'm going to talk about what I don't like about EW Wylie. Number one would probably be the dispatch system. It is forced dispatch. And I'm going to say this. Every company out there, as a company driver, just about is forced dispatch to a point. But Wylie is 100% forced dispatch. Like when we get empty, I know if you've worked at Crete or if you do work at Crete, you may remember when you send your empty call, it asks you for when you're going to be available. Because you're keeping up with your hours. You're going to do a restart when you're ready to do a restart. You're in control of those kinds of things at Crete. Over here, you're not at all. They don't ask you when you're going to be available. They're watching your hours. They're going to dispatch you as they see fit, and they're going to try to maximize the amount of profitability they can make out of that truck. Now, granted, my paychecks have been good. They've been getting me miles, so I'm not griping about it. It's just different. It is truly forced dispatch. Now, with that being said, if you get offered, or not offered, but if they want you to take a New York City load, that's not forced. That you actually have an option on. And I think they even kind of give you an option on oversized loads. I've hauled an oversized load here, and they did ask me if I was comfortable with it before I took it. But anything else, they're not going to ask you anything. They're just going to tell you, hey, go pick this up. And that's what you're going to do. Another thing that I am not a big fan of is they seem to schedule the reloads really close with your getting empty. Like I'll give you an example. I got empty in Jersey, and North Jersey at that. Then they had me a pickup down in Baltimore in the port. Well, I got empty, or I was scheduled to get empty at 7 o'clock in the morning. Well, that would have been when I unloaded. But as you know, you got to wait for them to unload you. You got to put all your stuff up, all that kind of stuff. So it's 9 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock before you get out of there. And then my reload was in the port at 1 o'clock. That's pretty tight up in the Northeast. Any of y'all that have been driving for any amount of time know when you're in New Jersey, 100 miles might take you 2 hours. It might take you 4 hours. New Jersey's very populated, and it's really hard to deal with. A lot of y'all know that. The whole Northeast is. You can't time things out there like you do in Texas or in Kansas or out west. You know, there wouldn't have been no problem with that kind of timing anywhere else. But that kind of timing in the Northeast is pretty tight. But my reloads, most of the time, have been so tight that there's not even time for me to stop and use the restroom. Like, I need to get there in order to get there on time to make that pickup without getting a service failure. I mean, if I stop to use the restroom or grab anything to eat, I'm not going to make it. That's been a little bit on the tight side. But other than that, no problems there. Something else I don't like here is this braking system on the front of this truck. I don't know if there's something wrong with it or if all of them are that way. I haven't talked to enough drivers to kind of figure it out. But you know how normally if you got your cruise on, it'll slow you down when you're coming up on somebody. So you just kind of watch it. It'll slow you down. And then when you get an opening, you can get over in the other lane and go around whoever it is. This one here, for some reason, will run you all the way up to them. It'll start to slow you down, and then it gets on the brakes. And I mean, it'll jerk your neck getting on the brakes. I don't know why this one does that, but it does. Another thing it does is if someone gets off at the exit. Now, most of these systems will put on the brakes if the back of their car or their truck is still in the lane. But I can be coming up on an exit and a car is way off. I mean, they're way out there. They're nowhere near a threat. And this thing will still get on the brakes. The other thing is it's got a camera that picks up the speed limits or whatever. Sometimes it picks up the speed limit of side roads or of exit ramps, and it'll tell you you're speeding when you're not. Like you're clearly in a 65 or 70 mile per hour speed limit, but it's telling you the speed limit is 35. That happens a lot, and I don't really care for that too much. It messes with our ranking and our point system, but hey, it is what it is. Hopefully they understand it in the office, but that happens a whole lot. Something else that kind of made me raise an eyebrow was that oversized load I talked about running earlier. If you're going to run oversized here as a driver, you're going to have to be 100% on top of it. because they're probably not going to catch it in the office. Like, for example, on the permit that I had, there was one state that I couldn't run through on the weekend. So I was going to end up sitting at the border and waiting, and wasn't going to be able to run through there until Monday, which made the load deliver later and everything else. But they didn't catch that. I caught that. My permit expired over the weekend. They didn't catch that either. I caught that. So when it comes to running oversized, as a driver, you really need to have experience when you're doing it here. I wouldn't suggest running oversized here if you don't have experience, because in the office, I felt like they don't have anybody that is in the office that's done a lot of it. Not that I dealt with anyway. So I needed to know what was going on, right? I needed to be on top of my game, which I've done a lot of oversized. I've done a lot of permit loads. I ran in the oil field. I've moved rigs. I've done all kinds of things. So I've done a lot of that. So it wasn't that big a deal to me, but I wouldn't suggest doing it if maybe something small, but like nothing really drastic I wouldn't do without getting a little bit of experience in it first here. And as a driver, you should know how to read those permits anyway. And I don't care if you have an escort. I don't depend on escorts. I know my route. And I'm going to be on top of that. The escort, as a matter of fact, I had to run escort through most of that load. And that escort didn't have a clue. Like, he was asking me, where's our next turn at? I was telling him on the radio, hey, I need to get up here because I need to catch that lane. Will you catch that lane for me because I need to get over to the left? This road's going to break off and I got to go to the left. Every day before we started, I would go over the route with him, what we were going to run that day. So as a driver, you've really got to be on top of that anyhow. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily a terrible thing. It's just something to keep in mind. Go over your permits. I'm going to do a video. I saved some of these permits. I'm going to black out what I need to black out, but I'm going to show you how to read these permits and what to look for on them so that you don't get yourself in a bind. You don't want to have DOT behind you with their lights on when you figure out that something's wrong with your permit and you didn't read it properly. And by the way, I mentioned the camera earlier. We have outward facing cameras here. You don't have an inward facing camera. Now, if you get caught on your cell phone or something really drastic, I don't know what all they have on the list that they consider drastic, but if you do anything way out there, there's a cover over the inside lens that will make you take that cover off. And I think it's 10 months you have to run with that cover off where they do have an inside facing camera. So just keep that in mind. Or if you're coming here and you've had some accidents recently, they may want you to run for a little while with that inward facing camera. It's just something to keep in mind. There is a lot of East Coast freight here as well. It's something else that's just not really my favorite. I run the East Coast, but it is not my favorite place to be. Right now, I'm kind of jealous because the drivers I do talk to here, all of them are on the West Coast right now. I'm the only one on the East Coast. So I got to be delivering up in Minnesota, emptying out my final on this load. Hopefully I get out west. That's something else kind of aggravates me, but I mean, that's most companies. That's the most populated part of the country, so you're going to run over there a lot. Something else that's kind of different here is there's a lot of multi-stop loads. A lot of sometimes multi-picks, sometimes multi-drops, but there's a lot of multi-stop loads here. Something else that's different, and I don't know if I really could say I don't like it or just not used to it, but here, and I'll have to get a picture of it to show you what I'm talking about, but they'll show you when you should arrive and when you should depart from being loaded or unloaded, right? And I may be wrong, but it feels like they're telling me how long it should take me to tarp a load, strap a load, chain a load. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I don't do it in a timely manner, what they're wanting is to increase production on the truck. And it kind of goes along with what I was saying earlier. We have truly forced dispatch here. They are in full control of the truck. So I think that's kind of what it is. And I'll see if I can find a picture from one of my previous loads to put on here to show you what I'm talking about, where it says you arrive and depart. And like I said, I'm new, so I may be wrong. but it's just what it seems like to me from what I see. And I don't know about you, but I don't like anybody telling me how long it should take me to do something. Because I'm going to tell you right now, when it's 105 degrees outside, or even when it's 90 degrees outside and humid, and I'm down in Alabama in the middle of summertime and I'm tarping a load, I don't tarp that load as fast as I do when it's 60 degrees outside. Because I'm going to take breaks, cool off, get a drink of water, maybe smoke a cigarette. It'll take me a little bit longer. So I don't know how I quite feel about that. Also, I like to go over my load a couple of times. I'm pretty paranoid going down the road. And if I even think my load is moving, I'm pulling over to check it. So I don't know. I just don't know how I feel about that. And that's why it's on my list of things that I don't like. Now, here real quickly, I'm going to go over what the other two drivers that I talk to me about on a pretty regular basis. All right, now one driver, met him in orientation, really cool dude, and talked to him pretty regularly. And one of the things he complains about is he feels like he shut down when snow was real bad, and he feels like they wanted him to run in it, and like he's caught a little bit of flack off of it or something. But then in another conversation, he told me that he feels like they were upset because he didn't call, but he said he did call. So I'm not quite sure how to take that, but that's one of the complaints he had. Another complaint is we don't have personal conveyance here, and he likes to go to the gym and do different things like that, and it's really kind of messed him up on that kind of thing, and he hates not having personal conveyance, and it's just something he don't like. There is no personal conveyance here, by the way. The other driver that I talk to on a pretty regular basis, now he's had a little bit different experience than me. He's waited like sometimes several hours to get his reload. Like, I know I was talking to him one time, he got empty and he waited 6 hours to get a reload. I was reloading that same day, and they actually deadheaded me to go pick up a load that he was closer to, and he had been empty longer than me. So he was kind of upset. I was like 50 miles further from that load. It was in between me and him. And he had been empty longer than me. But hey, I have had a little bit of waiting sometimes, but not a lot. I seem to stay pretty on it. Most of the time I've had my reloads before I get empty. And that's what I really like, so I can plan it out. But that's his experience, and it's a little bit different from mine. Like I said earlier, you can have 10 drivers, you'll get 10 different pieces of experience, and there may be something that they do that's different. Who knows? Maybe just the area he's in. Because I think whenever he got empty that time, he was in a different area than I was in. The way they dispatch here, they have the country broke up into sections, and they got dispatchers over each section. And I think he was in a different section than I was in. But the load I went to go get, I think it was in the section that I was in, but he was actually closer to it than I was, like about 50 miles closer to it than I was. And I had hell getting to that load on time because it was scheduled so freaking tight. I think I actually had to call him and get him to move it an hour because I got stuck in traffic in Baytown. But, so that's, I figured I'd put that in here because that's something he's talked to me about quite a few times. I will say also that they put appointments on loads that anybody who's experienced in flatbed knows there's no appointment. It might have a day that it's supposed to deliver on, but there's no appointment. A lot of your construction loads are like that. Like, they might want it on Thursday, but they don't normally put an appointment on it. Wylie will put an appointment on everything. And again, I think that's to maximize the usage of the truck, which I really don't have a problem with as long as they give me enough time to get to the next load and they keep me moving throughout the week. Another thing that's different here that can get a little bit frustrating is you won't always get a reset. Like, I've done a couple resets on the weekends. I know a lot of flatbed drivers, that's one of the reasons they like flatbed, is because on the weekend you normally get a reset and you can wash your clothes, get everything reorganized, that's gotten out of whack throughout the week. But it won't always be like that here. I've spent a lot of my weekends running for my next load, which is cool because, like I say, I'm getting enough miles. But if that's something that you look for in flatbed, you may not be happy with that. So I'll be straight up with you about that. Like I said in the beginning, I'm still getting used to this company. That's about as much as I can tell you right now. Maybe in a couple months I'll be able to tell you a little bit more as I get more used to the company, they get more used to me, and then I can give you a better understanding of what I'm going through and what I've learned about Wylie. But overall, hey, I've worked for Decker, I've worked for Hunt Transportation, and this company here now. That's the 3 flatbed over the road companies I worked for. Now I've done flatbed elsewhere in the oil field as well. That's a whole different animal. Not even going to compare it to them. I will say that in my opinion, Wylie is 1,000 times better than Decker was, in my opinion. Now when it comes to Hunt, I think Hunt had a little bit better freight, because I did a lot of coast-to-coast loads with Hunt. I mean, I was constantly doing coast-to-coast loads with Hunt. And Hunt had less than 15% of their freight was tarped. So, plus Hunt pays a little bit more, couple cents more per mile. My issue with Hunt was they're real small. It's less than 100 trucks. I only got 2 dispatchers. And one of the dispatchers I really didn't get along with. I mean, we were like oil and water. We did not mix very well at all. And it was very uncomfortable, not only for me, but for him. He didn't like me, and I didn't like him. And when you're with a little bit bigger company, there's always going to be people you don't click with, but you can kind of avoid them, or you're only dealing with them when you're in certain areas, and you get around it. But at Hunt, there's no getting around it. If you don't get along with that terminal manager at Hunt, or you don't get along with one of those dispatchers, that's who you're going to deal with all the time. Every single load, every single day, every time you call. So that's the difference there. But all in all, I'd say on the freight side, Hunt's a little better. On the money side, though, even though I was doing coast-to-coast loads over there, I had a little bit more wait time sometimes in my loads. So it's hard to say on the money side. But hey, they're probably running neck and neck. Where Hunt lacked, Wylie is better. Where Wylie lacks, Hunt was better, kind of thing. But as far as Decker's not even in the same realm. If you're at Decker, you're going to do better at any other flatbed company, just about. But yeah, I would definitely say 100 times better than Decker was. Like always, I try to be upfront about the good and the bad. Anytime I've ever done a review on a company, I just tell it how I see it, tell it how I feel, tell it how it is. And it doesn't mean anything. I mean, what I want it to do is, if you come here, I want you to already know what you're getting into. You already know what to expect. You already know that's how it is. So you're going to stay because you already know. If I get on here and I just tell you the good and I don't tell you none of the bad, well then when you get here, you'll be like, well, you didn't tell me about that. You didn't tell me about this. You didn't tell me it was forced dispatch. You didn't tell me there was no personal conveyance. I didn't know all of this. And you may not stay. I will say, if you are coming, I think it's a $2,500 sign-on bonus. They're going to give you $1,000 of it after orientation to go with your orientation pay. So your first check's like $2,000. Then they got guaranteed pay for your first 3 weeks, which really helps out as you're getting started and trying to get in the groove and get used to Wylie. And if you're interested, I'll put my card up right through here. It'll have all the information for contacting them on it, all that kind of stuff. You can contact them and let them know you want to come here. You don't have to put me down if you don't want to. I don't care. Like I've always said, not doing it for no recruitment bonus. If I was on here for a recruitment bonus, I'd be telling you all the good, leaving out the bad, and just rolling with it like a regular recruiter does when you call them on the phone. No, that's not it at all. If you do put me down, I appreciate it. And if I run into you, I'll buy you a steak or something, man, because I really do appreciate it. But if you don't, hey, you can still reach out to me, email me. I'll give you my number. We'll work together. It's always nice to have someone to talk to. You know how these times are out on the road, especially when you're on a long run. But y'all take care. Stay safe. I hope this is beneficial to you. And let's keep trucking.